Hey guys, I was writing down lists of topics to cover, different ideas for different videos, and there's just a lot of overlap because things can tangent out into their own branches or whatever, their own topics. So I'm just going to combine a few of them. So one of them was going to be on the idea of 1994 being like a point in time where you can start measuring the decline. And the way I was going to demonstrate some of that was going to be by showing that all of the best stuff came out in 1994, which you can argue then really means that like 1992 was the best year because, it takes a couple of years to make content, to make movies, video games, etc. But anyway, just a quick overview of that idea. I was going to cover The Lion King coming out in 1994, which, according to most people, most polls, is the best Disney movie of all time. Also, Forrest Gump came out in 1994, as did Pulp Fiction. And what's that other one? What is the other one? Like the one that's actually number one on IMDb? I forget. But anyway, the point being, we're not going to have another year like this for a long, long, long time. Can you imagine going to the theater and having Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and whatever the other movie is called, the one with Morgan Freeman, and The Lion King all playing at the same time in the theater? For video games, I was going to argue for Earthbound being the best video game of all time. And Earthbound, of course, came out in 1994 as well. My second favorite video game of all time is Super Metroid, also came out in 1994. Now, some of you might not have had the opportunity to have played those games when they came out. So obviously, you're not in any position to be able to disagree with that. But those of us that did, right? Like in my case, I got to play those games when they came out. And I also played the games that you played when those games came out. I also played BioShock and Skyrim. The other ones that people argue are the best games of all time or are commonly found on the best games of all time lists. Well, I played both of those. And, being someone that played both, I can tell you that something like Earthbound or Super Metroid was a better game. The newer games like Skyrim and BioShock, they rely too much on the technology, right? Like a lot of the appeal with Skyrim is like, oh, look how big the world is. Oh, look how big the map is. Oh, look at all the missions you can do. All this, a ton of side missions. But that's not really impressive. Like if you just break it down, if Skyrim was just, imagine this, imagine Skyrim was just one city and like 16 things to do in it. You would think it was a bad video game. So that just shows you that that the appeal of these newer games are relying very much on just the novelty of the technology, on like the graphics or how big the worlds are, etc. Well, anyway, that was going to be that video, but I don't have time to edit and the high production value and writing scripts and all that, so I just covered that topic like that. But segueing back to The Lion King, another video idea I was going to have was going to be specifically on Disney movies and how every Disney princess movie is about encouraging daughters to disobey their parents and to disobey tradition. And then I was also going to cover movies like Lion King and Hercules and how they're the opposite, right? The moral of the story in Lion King and in Hercules is that they need to return to their proper place. And what their proper place is determined by who they are biologically and by the tradition that comes with that biology. So in Lion King's case, Simba is a lion, right? And Mufasa even talks about how there's different kinds of animals. There's hyenas and this and that, and the hyenas live in their own area and they're different. They're the lions, they're the ones that are going to rule. And Simba is going to be the next king because he is the son of the current king. And so he has that responsibility just because of his biology and being born as a lion that's the son of a king. Right, and that's the movie. So Simba doesn't want to fulfill that role. So he leaves, he runs away. Oh, and by the way, in case you didn't know, the story of Lion King is basically just Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is another cheat code for making a good movie, is just using old source material, which I'll cover more in a different video. But going back to the Lion King and the moral of the story, and then at the end, Simba realizes that, he forsook his tradition, he's failing his ancestors and this and that. So he finally goes back and, claims his rightful throne, and that's how the movie ends. And that's the moral of the story. That hierarchies exist, that tradition is important and lineages are important and honoring your parents is important, all that sort of conservative stuff. Whereas all of the princess movies are the absolute opposite. So let's do Little Mermaid. So in Little Mermaid, the dad tells Ariel that she must absolutely not leave the ocean and not try to go and commingle with those walking humans above because it can bring havoc, on their land or whatever, or on their oceans. Well, anyway, in Ariel, the moral of the story is that she should disobey her father because her father's just, an old-timey, quaint, out of the loop old man, and it's the new age, and she should be able to now be free to go and do what she wants. It even has the line about bright young women, sick of swimming, ready to stand. So they add a little feminist twist to it, which we didn't catch at the time, right? So a lot of people think that the woke stuff just started like in 2015 or maybe as far back as 2012. But that's just because we weren't aware or looking for these things. We would just brush them aside, but the feminism and all that stuff has been there from day one. And in The Little Mermaid, they even show that the father was right and that bad things did happen because she disobeyed. But even with demonstrating that, it still ends with that she gets to stay with, the human life or whatever, the human lifestyle. She gets to marry the human. So even though in the movie itself they show the father is right, it still ends with it was good that she disobeyed him and disobeyed tradition and left her proper place and all that stuff. Same thing with Mulan. Mulan is about how women aren't allowed in the military, but she transitions into a man and passes, and and at the end when they discover, she isn't shamed, she's celebrated and whatever. So the moral of the story there is that it was good that she disobeyed tradition. And of course, they'll frame it in a certain way where it is good in that instance to disobey tradition. Like in her case, I forget what it was, something about like honoring her father or saving someone's life. I don't know what I don't remember, but there's something where like, oh, it is good that she disobeyed tradition because look, this good thing happened. But that's just a trick of the writer, right? The writer decides whether an action has a positive or a negative consequence. So it's a cheap trick to to choose the outcome and then cite that outcome as an example for arguing for morality or whatever, like what morality should be or whether tradition should be disobeyed or not. Because you can just manufacture, when you're writing the movie, this character disobeys tradition. Now, I'm a writer that wants to promote disobeying tradition, so I'll just write it that good things happen because she disobeyed, and that's what the moral will be. So it's a cheap trick. So anyway, she disobeys tradition, and the moral of the story is that it's good that she did. Beauty and the Beast. Same thing. It starts off with Belle, and she's like the college liberal. She's above it all. She's above the simple town folk. She talks about that she needs to explore the big city, and she needs to leave how does the song go? It has a few lines in it, like, his little wife, no sir, not me, I guarantee it, there must be more than this provincial life. Well, anyway, it's the same thing. She's trying to be above her tradition, above her people, above her culture. It doesn't expressly mention that she's also dishonoring her father by refusing to get married and have children. I don't remember if there's any, like, if the father ever comments on that, like even jokingly, like, oh, when are you going to get married or whatever and give me some grandkids? But it's what's happening, whether the story addresses it or not. So she has no interest in becoming a wife because she views herself as being above that. And again, it's a feminist idea that marriage is oppressive, and if you get married, then you can't learn things. And she wants to be a female that knows things. So she reads a lot of books, and that sort of thing. And Gaston, who should actually be a male that she is attracted to, because all the other women are, right? So they don't make him out to be, how do I describe this? So in the movie, they make it seem like he's bad because he wants to kill the beast or whatever. But if you watch the movie, you'll notice that he doesn't know what the situation is. Right? He's not in on it. It's not like he's aware of what the actual situation is, but he's exploiting it. He literally, from his point of view, he literally thinks that some beast has captured her or her father. I don't remember at that point in the story, but basically we're supposed to think that he's the bad guy, but from his perspective, he is doing what he should be doing. What a good man in that scenario would do, which is go and try to kill the beast and rescue the father or Belle. I don't remember. It's been a while. But anyway, same thing. What's another one? Moana. Okay, so that's a more recent example. Moana, same thing. She's the daughter of, I guess, the king, or maybe they call it something else in their culture. But she's the daughter. She's next in line. So with that comes responsibility, certain expectations of behavior, of roles, whatever. They constantly tell her not to, like, go into the ocean, far into it or something, like beyond some distance or something like that. But she sings about how the seas call her, and the same garbage about, oh, follow your heart, and she has to follow her heart. And of course she's rewarded, right? Good things happen. She gets to save the people and save the island or whatever because she disobeyed her father and tradition. So moral of the story is you should disobey your father and tradition because then you can save the people, like in the movie Moana. Whereas Hercules again and Lion King are the absolute opposite. The moral of their story is that they do the Moana and Ariel and Belle and Mulan thing, but then they realize that that's wrong and that that's not where they belong, and then they go back to honoring their ancestors and fulfilling their responsibility, which all the females are lacking. They don't have a sense of responsibility, which is accurate because in real life, women usually don't have or don't understand the concept of things like honor. The concept of honor is always alien to them. Like if you watch a movie where a guy does something honorable to his detriment, they never understand it. The women will always say, "Why did he do that?" Or "Why would he do that? He knew he was gonna die if he did that." Because women are different, right? So the princesses not grasping the concept of, the value of tradition or the value of honor, responsibility, those sorts of things. That's fine. That's fine that they don't grasp that. But what the problem is that the writers of the movie don't then write into the story that they learn their lesson, and then at the end they do value responsibility and honoring tradition, and then go back and fulfill their role rightfully. Right? That's the problem. And it's probably no coincidence that that's why The Lion King is ranked as the best Disney movie of all time, because just instinctually, if you watch the movie, it has those elements, those primal subconscious elements of honor, tradition that are hard to elaborate consciously, but they're there, and it appeals to people. And they might not understand why, right? They might think that the reason they like The Lion King is because the music is awesome or the artwork or whatever. But those elements, those undertones are, I would say, a large part of why it resonates with so many people, and why people till today often will cite it as the number one Disney movie of all time. And why polls show that that's what people to this day think. So that was going to be one video, just the whole Disney princess thing. And then that overlaps with another video, which was just going to be on the notion that what we call wokeness, that a lot of people are like, "Oh man, what's going on with this woke crap these past 4 years," has actually been going on probably for at least 70 years. It's just that it wasn't so overt. It was more subversive and subtle. Right? Like Ariel doesn't say women are oppressed by the patriarchy, right? But the seeds for that are in the story. Even if briefly, so you overlook it, you downplay that aspect of the story being in the story. And it's not just in movies. The wokeness was also in schools, right? So there's a big problem right now with a lot of people complaining about what the teachers teach the kids, without the parents knowing, and the teachers just brainwashing the kids with their own ideas that have nothing to do with learning addition and subtraction or whatever. But that was happening back then as well. I remember in the early 90s when I was in elementary school, I remember learning about how white people were all bad until a magic black man, Martin Luther King, came along and saved the world and taught white people the error of their ways, and how white people just wanted black people to have their own water fountains because they hated them, and how having your own water fountain is oppressive, and this and that. And same thing with the Hitler. I remember in the early 90s in elementary school when they shouldn't even be talking about this, but of course they are talking about these things because that's the age where you're more susceptible to just absorbing something and making it a part of your DNA for the rest of your life. So of course in these early ages is when they're teaching us that there was a man named Hitler, And he wanted to kill, they literally taught us that he wanted to kill the whole world for not being blonde and blue-eyed. All right, so that's literally the kind of garbage that they were teaching us in the early 90s. So the idea that like, oh, watch out with the wokeness going on this in the schools nowadays, it's been going on since day one. So a lot of people think that just reverting the school system or reverting culture to like 2015 standards, that they solved it. No, if you reverted to 2015 standards, you're just back to 2015, which just means, again, you're 4 years away from insanity, you know? So it's, I don't know. I don't know why people weren't as aware before. I don't know if it's entirely because it was more subtle, but it was always there basically. Right? How old were you when you learned that Hitler had an alliance with Japan, and Japan isn't blonde and blue-eyed, and Hitler didn't want to kill Japan, the Japanese people. So, I mean, make of that what you will. That's just my story of some of the obviously retarded things that I was being taught in public school in the early 90s. So that was going to be another video, the fact that wokeness has been there for, the past 70 years at least. Then the other one was going to be just the Disney specific ones, because a lot of people, same thing. They're like, oh, I'm not going to let my kid watch that new Disney movie with the trans in it. But then they'll let them watch Little Mermaid, and they're oblivious to like the message of the story and what's happening in the story. Then the other one I already covered, 1994, being like a point in time where you can see where things peaked and how don't expect another year like that for a very, very long time. I guess I might as well talk about using old source material as a cheat code. So there was a while recently for a couple of years where I just assumed we would never, well, not never, literally, but meaning like in the next 10 years, we're not going to get a good high budget movie, right? Like a good $300 million movie. I thought those days were over for at least the next 10 years, because the Hollywood execs like realize they can just keep pumping out garbage that's free money for them, right? They can just keep making Marvel movies and Star Wars, action movies, the Fast and Furious type stuff, Minecraft, all that slop. They can just keep making that and keep making free money. So why would they risk their model that works by making a good movie? All the good movies in the past like 15 years are all low budget, borderline indie. So I thought, oh, that sucks. We would never get like Gladiator or Saving Private Ryan or Forrest Gump, right? Forrest Gump wouldn't be able to be made today because it's not a popular, like if it hadn't already been made, right? Imagine nobody has made Forrest Gump yet, so it doesn't have like the IP branding power that it has. But imagine it's 2025 and someone gets the book that Forrest Gump is based on. Like, I want to make a movie about this, but it's going to cost me $400 million. It would never get approved because people are too retarded. There isn't a market anymore for a good movie that is going to sell a lot of tickets. Well, so I thought. But then I found, I thought about it. I'm like, oh, there is this combination that will still work every now and then. And that's one where when you have an established director that already put in his hours. So now he has creative license, right? Where the studios say, okay, you know what? Do whatever you want in this next one. Okay, so that's the first piece. Then the second piece is they use old source material. So an example of this is Dune. So Dune isn't like in the top 10, movies of all time or anything like that, but it's a pretty good movie and it's an expensive movie to make. So how do they manage that? Well, those two ingredients I mentioned. One, it has an excellent director that already put in his time. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Denis Villeneuve, something along those lines. But he already made his lower budget movies, like Prisoners, Sicario, that sort of thing. So he's established, and he's at the point now where the studios trust him. So he has creative license, and with that, after he earned it, he chose Dune, which is an older source material, right? It was written by someone that's in their 30s right now. I don't know if the author's still alive. I don't remember how old the material is. I think it was from like the 60s. But anyway, that's a cheat code. So it made me realize, okay, we still have some opportunities for high budget, good movies. They're not going to be like Forrest Gump, but they can still be pretty good. I would say Dune is pretty good. I would give it like a 8 out of 10. So I guess that's it for this mishmash of Lion King, Disney, 1994, how to make a good, expensive movie, and some other side tangents. See you on the next one. Okay, I almost forgot to mention this regarding the Lion King. So apparently the new Lion King, the last one that was called Mufasa, the premise of that is that it turns out Mufasa wasn't actually part of the royal bloodline. So he wasn't meant to be king, but how he rose up anyway and whatever. So completely undermining the premise of the real Lion King movie, the first one. It's like the writers of that movie never watched or understood The Lion King. Because in Lion King 1, Mufasa gives a speech to Simba, and it's all about how their bloodline is the reason. How he has ancestors, the kings, the previous kings, and their stars in the sky. And how he has to do it because he's the son of the king and this and that. So anyway, if we were going to go with that retarded idea that even if you're not the one that should be king, anyone can be king, then why not just fucking make one of the hyenas become the king then? That's probably what's coming next. But anyway, that's it for this one.